Okay, welcome back in. I'm hoping I'll have this video uploaded before it's too late or before the Thursday night game takes place. So heading into week number 4, we are now officially a month into football season. Isn't it scary how fast time goes? I've said this before, October is just around the corner and then November will be here, December is pretty close, and then before you know it, the season will be over. So let's really cherish the next 3 months because I know it's going to fly by. So heading into week number 4, I have an overall record with my predictions of 34 and 14. So I'm currently sitting 20 games above 500. And as long as I don't spit the bed, or even if I happen to get all 16 matchups for week 4 wrong, at least I know I'll still be above 500. But I'm hoping I'll have a few predictions come true. So, Thursday, we have a huge game, and I know a lot of people might think, week 4, how big can the game really be? It's going to be big. You have two teams from the NFC West. There's essentially a 3-way tie for second place, so clearly one team, unless this game ends in a tie, should improve to 3-1, while the other one will drop back to 500 at 2-2. And then the reason why division games are so crucial, I'm not saying other games aren't as important, but let's just say you're trying to fight to get that division crown. If you happen to lose to one of your opponents, and maybe you lose to them twice, by the end of the year, they could have the same record as you, but because you lost to them early in the season, or twice in the season, they would make it into the playoffs or have a higher seeding than you. So when it comes to division games, I don't care if it's week 1, I don't care if it's week 18. This game means a lot for both of these teams. I'm going to take the Seahawks in this matchup. There's no real rhyme or reason. I just feel like maybe they should be the better team on paper. And if there's one team that could win the NFC West, even though the 49ers do have the lead thus far, I would put my money on Seattle. Not trying to disrespect Arizona, but because they've had so many inconsistent seasons after missing it for 3 straight years. Yes, you could say Seattle missed the playoffs last year, but they barely missed it. They had the exact same record as the Rams, and they still managed to be on the outside looking in. So that's what I can't stress enough about is you could finish with the same record as your division opponent, but because of so many different circumstances, mainly if they beat you in the season, that they have a chance of succeeding you in the standings. The next game takes place in Pittsburgh, as we have the Steelers, who are sitting at 2-1, taking on the Minnesota Vikings, who are sitting at 2-1 as well. For Aaron Rodgers, this is going to be obviously familiar territory, considering he played in the NFC North for what felt like almost 2 decades. Obviously, he never played against J.J. McCarthy, so this will be his first game against their starting quarterback. I'm going to give the edge to the Steelers. I just think there's something about this team, and I can't stress that enough. And I know I'm going to sound like a broken record saying this, but there's just something about this team. There's something about Mike Tomlin teams that always seem to have success. They always seem to somehow find a way to sneak into the playoffs. Even if it's as a number 7 seed, they can finish 9-8 and still somehow make the playoffs. I would be absolutely flabbergasted if they finished below 500 this year, because it's never happened in the Mike Tomlin era, and that guy's been coaching since 06 or 07, so yeah, it's been almost 2 decades. And granted, he did have Big Ben as a quarterback there, and he went to 2 Super Bowls with them, coming away with 1 victory, but even after Ben Roethlisberger retired back in 2022, I believe, they've gone through several quarterbacks, and yet they still find a way to float above 500. It's absolutely mind-blowing considering other teams have a hard time finishing close to 500, and this team just somehow pulls it off. So my gut's just telling me, go with the Steel City. All right, now we're off to Atlanta, where the Falcons, sitting at 1-2, are taking on the Washington Commanders. Just because Atlanta got blown out last week against the Panthers, a team they should have beaten, I'm taking the Commanders. I don't care about stats. I don't care about this, that, or the other thing. I'm just kind of through with the Falcons. I had such high hopes and expectations for this team for this season, I thought they should have been and would have been competitive for the NFC South. Now, I know I could bite my tongue and they could obviously win this game and possibly sneak into the playoffs as a wild card, but I just haven't seen consistency out of this team. And how many quarterbacks have they had since Matt Ryan left? It feels like it's been at least a handful. So, and here's the other question too is, I mean, Michael Penix Jr. hasn't played the best to get off to a rookie season. He technically was drafted last year, but he didn't play until late in the year when they eventually benched Kirk Cousins. So do you do a flip? Do you bench Penix Jr. and start Kirk Cousins because he's still on your payroll? He's still on your team. I feel like if they lose this game, you got to go back to Kirk because what else do you have to win? What else do you have to lose? So, yeah, I got the Commanders in this game all day. All right, the Buffalo Bills are playing host to the New Orleans Saints. Pretty simple. One team's undefeated, the other one has yet to win, so I'm going to clearly take the team that's undefeated. I don't believe this is a trap game. I know once in a while or once in the blue moon, you will be playing a game and you lose and it ends up being a quote-unquote trap game, but I just don't see a scenario where the Bills lose to the Saints. The Saints, they're just... I've said this before. I'm not saying that I'm not going to go down that road. But they're not that good. And they're clearly in a rebuild. I've said that several times before. So it's just going to be a tough road for the Saints. Do I see them finishing in third place in that division? Maybe, just because Atlanta is playing so poorly. And, I mean, the Panthers, granted, got their first win of the season last year. But technically, the Saints are only a game behind both of those teams. So maybe they could take a leap forward and finish third above the Panthers and or the Falcons. Maybe. But I truly think that they're not quite there just yet. So I think Buffalo should remain undefeated. And unfortunately for the Saints fans, I apologize. I think they'll drop to 0-4. Okay, the Detroit Lions are playing host to the Cleveland Browns. The Lions are sitting at 2-1, while the Cleveland Browns are sitting at 1-2. I'm giving the edge to the Lions. Now, I say that, and Cleveland beat Green Bay just last week, but Detroit's not Green Bay. And even though a lot of people have made the obvious observation that they don't have their defensive coordinator from last year and they don't have their offensive coordinator from last year, that maybe they'd be taking a step backwards, but they seem to be just as good, if not better. I mean, they just put up 38 points against the Ravens. So, if they can beat the Ravens in Baltimore, I have hope that they can beat Cleveland at home. Okay, so this has to be the least intriguing game of the season thus far. Between the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans. Actually, I say that, but there's still also two other winless teams that will be competing later on, which I will get to them in just a brief moment. I have picked Houston 3 straight weeks, and they have burned me 3 straight weeks. So I'm done with the Houston Texans. I know on paper, Houston should be the better team against the Titans, and I know that Stroud should be a better quarterback than Cam Ward. No disrespect to Cam Ward at all. But because Houston's played so poorly and they just don't seem to have their mojo this year, which is crazy because a lot of people, including myself, had them as the winners of the AFC South, and they're already 3 games behind the Colts already. It's not looking too good. So I know I'm going to sound crazy predicting this, but they've burned me 3 straight weeks. I'm just tired of picking them, and they don't come away with a W. So I'm going to take Cam Ward and the Titans. All right, the next one is an interconference matchup between the New England Patriots and the Carolina Panthers. Now, both these teams are sitting at 1-2 respectively, and you can almost say that both these teams might be sitting second in their division because the Panthers are sitting... They have the same record as the Falcons, and because they beat the Falcons, in theory, they should be ahead of them in the standings. So, yeah, it's looking like 2 number 2 seeds are likely going to be facing off in Foxborough. I'm going to take the Patriots in this one. I said this in my last video that the Patriots are a better team, or they should be a better team this year. And because of how poorly the Dolphins and the Jets have played so far, that the Patriots could take a jump forward and could possibly finish as high as second in the AFC East. As for the Panthers, they had a huge win against the Falcons last week, but the Patriots are not the Falcons, so I just don't see a scenario where they go into New England and pull off the W. Now, I'll say this as a quick little side note, not saying that they can't or they won't, but I believe for some teams, home field advantage plays a bigger factor than others, and even though the Patriots don't have Brady or Gronk on their team, they are a team that's definitely on the rise. I don't think they're in their rebuild mode anymore. Drake May is the quarterback for this team moving forward, and he'll do some. I'm sure he'll do some good things for this franchise in the future. Okay, another matchup where we have one winless team and one team that is yet to lose. The New York Giants are playing host to the Los Angeles Chargers. I've raved so much about LA in my last video, I'm not going to rave again because I could end up having an hour-long prediction video, and I don't want to do that. But I think the Chargers are the better team, and they should remain undefeated and defeat the Giants. Now, in my personal opinion, this has to be the game of the week. On your bottom right-hand corner, you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers sitting at 3-0, taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, who are also sitting 3-0. I know this is going to be an absolute wild shot to even consider the thought, but I wouldn't put it past them if Tampa Bay and Philly met in the playoffs, and it could even be like a championship game style. Now, I'm sure a lot of people will laugh at that and say, well, you can't be overlooking the Lions or the Packers, the 49ers, but Tampa's healthy. Now, I say that, and they just lost Mike Evans, but I mean, even with him out of the lineup, I still feel that Mayfield will find an open target and be able to get those crucial first downs, touchdowns, get his team within field goal range. I mean, he's done it for 3 straight weeks. I don't see why he can't do it for another week at home. So, as much as I think Philly should be the better team, I mean, they do have the better running back, and A.J. Brown is like their number one guy at receiver, so I mean, maybe he can catch a few balls, maybe get a touchdown. Who knows what can happen with him? Or maybe he's just too busy to read books on the sideline. I don't know. he's too wishy-washy for me. But now, I'm not saying Philadelphia can't go into Tampa Bay and win, but they haven't had as much success in years past against Tampa than you might think. If you don't believe me, just go on Google, look up Eagles and Buccaneers history or game history, and I'm pretty sure the Bucs have won like the last 4 games, dating back to like 2021 when they defeated. I'm getting all screwed up. Back in 2022 when they obviously defeated the Eagles in the wild card round. I don't know, for some reason Philadelphia's always had a bit of a hard time against Tampa, and this is going back. You could even date this back to the early 2000s when these teams seem to have met in the playoffs like 3 straight years, if I'm not mistaken. I know they for sure met in 2003, and Tampa went into Philadelphia, defeated them in the NFC Championship game, and then went on to play in the Super Bowl and obviously won that game. So Tampa's been like a thorn in the Eagles' side, so just because of their history and how it's almost been one-sided, you could say. So that's why I'm picking Tampa Bay in this matchup. All right, the Los Angeles Rams are sitting at 2-1. The Indianapolis Colts are sitting at 3-0. I think this is going to be a very good matchup. You have 2 really good offenses duking it out. Indy is hoping to stay undefeated, while the Rams are hoping to gain some ground in that NFC West. A win, and they can improve to 3-1. And obviously, if for some crazy reason, if San Fran happens to lose, then they'd be basically tied for first place in that NFC West. I'm taking the Rams in this one. I know a lot of people probably want to take the Colts just because they have obviously won their first 3 games, but look who they played. They played the Dolphins in week 1. The Dolphins are 0-3. They played who they play in. They played the Broncos in week 2, and granted, it did come down to a last-second field goal to defeat them, but they still won. And then where am I looking now? So Indy played the Titans. So they have played like one mediocre team, two not good teams, and now they're going into LA, and they're a very good team, and I've said this several times that they're probably one of the best teams in the NFC West. So this is going to be the biggest test the Colts have had to date. And I mean, not saying Daniel Jones can't go into LA and pull off a victory. He very well could, and if he does, then you have to think the Colts are going to be a very dangerous team moving forward. But because LA's at home, they got Matt Stafford, they got Devontae Adams, who has been rejuvenated since joining LA after he split last season between the Raiders and the Jets. He didn't have that great of a season last year, but he seems to be fitting in LA just fine as Matt Stafford's, well, one of his guys. Not the guy, but he's been effective to say the least. All right. The San Francisco 49ers are playing host to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The 49ers are sitting at 3-0 atop of their division, while the Jaguars are sitting in second place in the AFC South with a record of 2-1. I know this is going to sound absolutely absurd because on paper and in theory, the 49ers should be able to win this game and stay undefeated, but this could be a trap game for the 49ers as well. I know I'm not trying to say this in a disrespectful way, but I know that even though their record's 3-0, they are really not a 3-0 team. They narrowly escaped last week against the Cardinals with a win, and just because they're so injury prone, it's hard for me to believe they can keep this pace up when they're missing key players. So I'm not saying San Fran can't win this game because they probably are the favorite in this matchup, but if there's one trap game I could consider on this week's schedule, it could be the Jaguars, and they could pull a win out in San Fran. So, in most cases, or in most seasons, the Ravens and Chiefs would be much-watched TV, and I clearly think whoever wins this matchup, if they somehow miraculously come away with the division crown, I'm not saying that they will, then if they happen to meet in the postseason, because the winner of this game won against their opponent, they would obviously have home field advantage in whatever round of the playoffs they happen to meet. I firmly believe that the Ravens are still going to be a good enough team, even though their record doesn't show it. They can bounce back, and I believe the Chiefs, even though they're not as dynamic, I guess, as in years past, they still got Patrick Mahomes. And I've said they could literally pick a bum off the side of the street, and as long as Mahomes is scrambling to the left or the right, and that guy and the guy can get wide open or get at least enough leverage on the defender, he's going to find them. And if he can't find them, he's going to take off. I mean, he's a dual threat to run the ball and pass it, so I would not be surprised if the Chiefs won this game, got back to 500, and started getting their shit together and go from there. But with that being said, I'm taking the Ravens, and I believe the Ravens need to get back to 500 because if for some reason they drop to 1-3 and say either the Steelers and or the Bengals win their respective matchups, they could find themselves 2 games behind in that division, and trying to play catch up when you're 2 games behind in the division is going to be a tough thing to do, especially to try to catch up to those teams, let alone to try to compete for a wild card spot, because teams at some point during the season, they will start to take off, go on these winning streaks, and then it's going to be nearly impossible to try to beat them or compete with them for a wild card spot or a playoff spot in general. All right, now we're off to Vegas, as we have the Las Vegas Raiders. They are sitting at 1-2. The Chicago Bears are also sitting at 1-2, getting their first win against the Cowboys last week. I'll keep this sweet and short. I'll take the Bears in this matchup. If they can play like they did against the Cowboys, There's no reason why they can't play this way against the Vegas Raiders. Now, I'm not saying that Vegas and the Cowboys have the same identical defense or they play the same way, but if Caleb found a way to win against Dallas, what's to say he can't find a way to win against Vegas? I mean, if Vegas was in any other division, you could say, well, they should be a top 2, top 3 team in that division. But just because the Chargers are a really good team, the Chiefs, I believe, will bounce back. The Broncos, if they can play better and more consistently and run the damn ball, should, in theory, be able to have a better record than the Las Vegas Raiders. But with that being said, even though the Broncos swept the series last year is not this year. So who knows? This Vegas team could pull out a win and they could find themselves in second place in the division. Only time will tell, but I'm going with Chicago. Okay, so 3 games remaining on this Week 4 preview. Now we're heading into the Sunday night matchup between the Dallas Cowboys, who are sitting at 1-2, and the Green Bay Packers, who are sitting at 2-1. I'm going to give the edge to the Packers in this one. They seem to have the Cowboys' numbers, especially as of late. And for Dallas, they're just too wishy-washy for me. Like, they look good in their victory, but in their 2 losses, they didn't look that great, and especially against the Bears last week. Gave up 31 points, only scored 2 touchdowns. So, obviously, if you're giving up more points than you're scoring, you're going to have an L beside your name at the end of the game. And I just have not seen the Cowboys really play that well, if I'm going to be honest with you, so far this season. And the only thing that I could say for the Cowboys is I don't know. I don't even know what to say. They could surprise us, and they could finish maybe second in the NFC East if they can go on a bit of a winning streak. But for right now, they're sitting in third, and if Washington happens to win and Dallas loses this game, then they're 2 games behind them already for second place in the standings. And I know it seems crazy to think just 1 month into the season, but if you're 1-3, I mean, not saying that the probability is high or that it's not going to happen, but what are the chances you really think they make the playoffs if they start 1-3? Oh, and I guess the big highlight is Micah Parsons is coming back to Dallas, so I'm sure he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder going up against his former team, so I would not be surprised to see Micah Parsons rush Dak Prescott. Okay, it's 2 more games to preview. Just like the earlier game that I talked about with 2 winless teams between the Texans and the Titans, the Jets and the Dolphins, another divisional matchup where 2 teams are winless on the year. I really don't know who to pick in this one. I don't. This is a flip of a coin. I don't have too many good things to say about these teams. I've gone on enough rants about these 2 teams, so I feel like I'll just save my breath. And I'll take the Dolphins, even though they haven't played that good, and they don't deserve to have any victories for the remainder of the season, but somebody has to win. So unless this game somehow ends up in a tie, again, I don't have a dog in this fight. The Jets could go into Miami and pull the W, get their first win of the season. Miami could finally figure their stuff out and get their first win of the year as well. But who knows? I wouldn't be upset if the Jets won because I predicted Miami would win, and I sure as hell ain't going to be upset if Miami wins after I predicted that they would win. So there's not a whole lot that I can say about this particular matchup. Okay, the last one has the Denver Broncos sitting at 1-2, taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, who are sitting at 2-1. Now, if Joe Burrow is healthy, and I'm going to say this for every time Cincinnati plays, if Joe Burrow is healthy, I believe they should have been the favorite in this matchup to come away with the W. But because he's out, and look how badly they got beaten last week against the Vikings, they might be in trouble against the Broncos. And if the Broncos happen to win, just like I've said 100 times, and I'll probably say it 100 more times, if they happen to have the same record by season's end, the Broncos would have the tiebreaker because they beat them. Now, if Cincinnati can pull out a win in the Mile High City, they will improve to 3-1 and should still remain, if not in first place, at least tied for first place in the AFC North. So a very crucial game for both these teams. One team's trying to stay at top of their division, while the other one is trying to get back to 500 and hopefully be above 500 come week number 5. Alright, that's going to take care of this video. As always, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, feel free to hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative as well. Until next time, and as always, take care.